The sexual savagery of Genghis Khan reshaped an entire continent through deliberate terror. In a dimly lit tent, heavy with incense and dread, a young woman's hand shakes beneath embroidered sheets. The most dominant man in history lies beside her, eyes closed in grim satisfaction. She is one among thousands, yet tonight she will be the last. Her fingers touch the cold steel hidden under her pillow. The storm outside muffles her shallow breath. This Tangut princess, whose family perished in flames 3 years ago, has waited for this instant through endless degrading nights. The dagger catches candlelight as she raises it. In moments, the conqueror who claimed 7,000 women will discover that conquest carries consequences. The ruler who built an empire upon systematic assault is about to face justice from his final captive. History may call it legend, but the screams that shattered the night were real enough. How did one man's private anguish turn into history's most vast campaign of sexual violence? Why did a single abduction create a system that left 16 million genetic heirs across 2 continents? To understand this, we must return 25 years earlier to a kidnapping that altered human history. What began with one woman's capture would culminate with a hidden blade and an empire founded on misery. In 1184, Genghis Khan was still called Temujin, merely another tribal chief struggling to survive on the harsh Mongolian steppe. He had wed Berta as teenagers in a political pact that promised fragile peace. But the Merkits had other intentions. They remembered an ancient blood debt, a woman once stolen by Temujin's father. Their attack came at dawn. 30 riders stormed the camp while Temujin escaped on horseback, leaving his young bride behind. Berta vanished into Merkit territory where she became the possession of a warrior named Chilgur. For 8 bitter months, Temujin's wife endured captivity. Chronicles do not detail exactly what befell her, but the outcome spoke for itself. When Temujin finally retrieved her with help from his sworn brother, Berta was visibly pregnant. The child, Yochi, would bear the stain of uncertain paternity his entire life. His name meant guest, a constant reminder of his doubtful origins. Though Temujin claimed him publicly, suspicion gnawed within. In quiet hours, he studied Yochi's features, seeking Merkit traces. Berta's rescue exposed something fractured in Temujin. He had saved her body, but not her honor. Among the Mongols, a woman seized by enemies bore lasting shame. The man who once fled on horseback transformed into someone else, someone who would never run again. The Merkits suffered first, not only the warriors who seized Berta, but their whole people. Women, children, the aged, were annihilated. Yet slaughter was not enough. Temujin wanted them to endure what Berta had endured. This became his model. Sexual violence was not random cruelty. It was deliberate vengeance expanded across the earth. His generals understood the psychology. Temujin could not erase Berta's violation, so he would impose it upon the world. He could not guard one woman, so he would dominate thousands. The victim became the ultimate aggressor, spreading his agony into millions of lives. What Temujin did next echoed through centuries. He transformed his private trauma into state policy. The Mongols created a system for handling captive women that was both bureaucratic and monstrous. After each victory, officials judged captured women with a point scale: beauty, age, virginity, noble rank, each given numerical value. A virgin princess might rank 95 points, a merchant's widow perhaps 60. Evaluations took place in open squares, women stripped bare while scribes circled with ledgers. Those scoring above 90 went directly to the Khan. The 80s were gifted to generals. The 70s divided among officers. The 60s rewarded common troops. Below 60, women were sent to the military brothels that shadowed every Mongol horde. The empire maintained meticulous records, resembling inventories of human property. Captives were sorted by ethnicity, Chinese, Persian, Russian, each segregated, for the Mongols believed every race offered a distinct experience. Thousands required vast infrastructure, guards, supply chains for food and clothing, not out of kindness but to preserve value. Pregnant women were logged separately, their children's lineage noted. The Mongols had turned sexual slavery into administration. The Khan's personal collection of 7,000 women was organized like a living map of conquest. Financial accounts reveal nearly 15% of imperial revenue supported this machinery of exploitation. In 1202, after crushing the Tatars, Genghis decreed every male taller than a wagon wheel be executed. Their women, however, were divided among Mongol soldiers. This was no chaos, it was sanctioned. The goal, Tatar bloodlines, would continue only through Mongol fathers. Wombs became instruments of erasure, genocide through reproduction. Every captured city endured the selection. Women and girls herded into plazas, stripped, examined, graded. Children under 7 and women beyond 40 were often killed outright. Being chosen meant entering the Mongol sexual economy as private or communal property. The process was meant to destroy spirits, criteria hidden, fates arbitrary, families torn apart. Way stations across the empire provided 3 services: horses, meals, and women. Each station ran comfort houses with inventories of captives, rotated to prevent escape. At its height, over 50,000 women were trapped in this system. Daily logs counted how many soldiers each served, who was pregnant, who had died. Genetic science confirms the aftermath. Today, 16 million men bear Genghis Khan's Y chromosome. This was no accident. It was demographic warfare through forced reproduction. Roughly 8% of men in former Mongol realms carry identical markers from that era. In some regions, nearly a third. These are assaults written into living DNA. The Mongols did not merely distribute women, they innovated in cruelty. They absorbed torture from conquered peoples, perfecting psychological torment, forcing kin to harm each other, constructing impossible choices. By the empire's peak, the average victim's age had fallen drastically. Records list girls as young as 7. Younger captives were seen as more durable, a grim calculation. But among them was one who changed everything. Princess Gerbasu of the Tangut was 16 when her city fell in 1227. Her brothers slain, her mother leapt from a tower to avoid capture. Selected for her royal blood, she was sent to the Khan's tent. For 3 years she endured his concubinage, silently plotting revenge. Taught Mongol tongue, gifted a dagger by another captive, she prepared. The moment came in a thunderstorm. The Khan, drunk, summoned her. She concealed the blade in her coiffed hair. Entering, she thought of her burned city, of all she had lost. "For the Tengat," she whispered in flawless Mongolian as the knife struck. The terror of continents died as he had lived, surrounded by evidence of his crimes. His last sight was the partitions separating women by race. Gerbasu fled into the storm and leapt into the river. Her body was recovered days later, but the empire's foundation had cracked. Generals spread false tales, illness, a hunting mishap, anything but the truth. They could not admit the greatest conqueror fell to a teenage girl he had enslaved, yet whispers spread among the women's tents, the princess who slew the beast. The Mongol campaign of sexual terror remains history's most systematic assault. It shows how one man's wound can scar civilization. The machinery of slavery outlived him, persisting for generations. Its echoes remain in cultural architecture, in customs of female seclusion, in the very DNA of millions. One man's vengeance quite literally rewrote the human genome, leaving scars that endure 8 centuries later.